For years, Millennial Farmer has built a reputation on one thing: honesty. Early mornings, million-dollar machinery, razor-thin margins, and the real stress that comes with feeding the country. Zach Johnson doesn't pretend farming is easy, stop den carbon, and that transparency is exactly why millions trust him. But there's one detail viewers can't ignore. Nearly every major machine rolling across his fields is painted bright green. And as his channel exploded in popularity, so did the speculation. Is it just long-standing brand loyalty, a practical business decision, or something deeper tied to sponsorship and corporate influence? John Deere has appeared in collaborations, and some posts have carried partner labels. At the same time, the company has faced major controversy over repair restrictions and farmer rights. So where does Zach actually stand? Is he walking a careful line between authenticity and partnership? Or is the story more complicated than anyone expected? Long before brand debates and partnership rumors, Zach Johnson was just a fifth-generation farmer trying to keep his family operation moving forward. Farming in west central Minnesota isn't glamorous. It's weather risks, tight planting windows, rising input costs, and equipment that can cost more than a suburban home. That's the reality he decided to film. When he launched the Millennial Farmer channel, the goal wasn't controversy. It was connection. He wanted people outside agriculture to see what actually happens on a modern corn and soybean farm. And instead of polished marketing, he showed breakdowns, delays, financial pressure, the kind of setbacks most businesses would rather hide. That honesty is what changed everything. Viewers weren't just watching tractors roll through fields. They were seeing the business side of farming. The stress of making payments, the gamble of weather, the constant race against time. He explained equipment decisions, technology, upgrades, and why certain machines mattered to his operation. And slowly, that transparency built trust. As the audience grew into the hundreds of thousands, then millions, something else became clear. This wasn't just a farmer with a camera anymore. It was a full-scale media brand built on authenticity. But growth changes perception. When a small family farm becomes a major online platform, every choice gets examined, every partnership gets questioned, and every piece of green equipment suddenly looks like more than just a practical decision. And that's when curiosity started turning into scrutiny. If you scroll through the channel, one thing stands out immediately. The tractors, the combines, the sprayers, almost all of them wear that unmistakable green and yellow. And for some viewers, that alone raises eyebrows. But on a working farm, equipment choices usually start long before YouTube ever enters the picture. Zach's operation, like many multi-generation farms across the Midwest, has used John Deere machinery for years. In agriculture, brand decisions often snowball over decades. When your planter, tractor, and combine are designed to integrate through shared technology systems, switching brands isn't simple. It means reconfiguring precision ag software, retraining operators, adjusting parts inventory, and sometimes changing dealership relationships that took years to build. Dealer support alone can make or break a season. When a breakdown hits in the middle of harvest, response time matters more than brand perception. Farmers often stick with what they know works. Not because of loyalty to a logo, but because downtime costs real money. Still, once you build a massive audience, those practical decisions don't always look practical from the outside. To viewers, consistency can start to feel like allegiance, and allegiance can start to feel like influence. That's where the speculation grows. Because while long-term equipment strategy explains a lot, it doesn't explain everything. Especially once collaborations and partner-labeled posts begin appearing. And that's when the conversation shifts from farming logistics to business relationships. Here's where things start to feel different. As the channel grew, John Deere didn't just appear in the background of field work. The company began showing up in collaborations. Certain posts were labeled as sponsored or partner content, event appearances, product features, behind-the-scenes looks at new equipment. None of it was hidden. Disclosures were there. But perception changes when money is involved. For some viewers, a sponsored label instantly shifts the tone. It raises a simple question. Can someone fully critique a company they collaborate with? Even if the partnership is limited, the optics alone can create doubt. Critics argue that once a financial relationship exists, total independence becomes complicated. On the other hand, supporters see it differently. They point out that farming has always involved manufacturer relationships. seed reps, equipment dealers, input suppliers. Partnerships are built into the industry, and YouTube at this scale isn't a hobby anymore. It's a production operation with staff, equipment, and serious overhead. Still, this isn't just about advertising, it's about trust. Millennial Farmer built his audience on transparency, so when corporate collaboration enters the mix, viewers naturally look closer. They analyze tone, they compare language, they search for what's said, and what isn't. And that tension only intensified when one of the biggest equipment controversies in modern agriculture exploded into the mainstream, because suddenly staying neutral didn't look so simple anymore. Then the conversation shifted from sponsorships to something much bigger. For years, farmers across the country voiced frustration over repair restrictions tied to modern equipment software. As tractors and combines became more computerized, certain diagnostics and recalibrations required proprietary tools. Critics argued that when a machine breaks down during planting or harvest, waiting on a certified technician can mean devastating delays. The issue grew into the national right to repair debate. In 2023, John Deere signed a memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation, promising broader access to repair tools, manuals, and diagnostic information. Supporters saw it as progress, and there's a step toward giving farmers more control over their own equipment. Critics quickly pointed out that the agreement wasn't legally binding and questioned how much would actually change in day-to-day operations. The debate didn't disappear. Legal scrutiny and political pressure continued, keeping the issue in headlines. On his channel, Zach has shown real breakdowns. He's talked about service calls and the realities of modern machinery, but he hasn't positioned himself as a leading activist voice in the repair movement. He hasn't turned his platform into a protest stage, and that silence or neutrality is where opinions split. Some see it as professionalism, others see it as avoidance. Because when you collaborate with a company at the center of controversy, even staying measured can look like taking a side. And that's where the tension really starts to build. This is where the debate turns personal. Once viewers connect sponsorship labels with a company facing public criticism, the next step is almost automatic. Is he holding back? Some critics believe so. They argue that when your equipment, dealership support, and occasional collaborations all tie back to one manufacturer, it becomes harder to speak freely. Even if there's no written rule, there's an unspoken understanding. Why risk damaging a relationship that supports your operation? From that perspective, neutrality feels strategic. But others see the situation very differently. They point out that Zach's channel isn't built around corporate messaging. It's built around day-to-day farming. He documents breakdowns, he shows frustrations, he explains costs. He doesn't present farming as flawless or glamorous. And supporters argue that not turning every issue into a headline doesn't mean he's protecting anyone. It may simply mean he's focused on running his farm. There's also a reality most viewers don't see. Modern farm equipment costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Service support during critical seasons can determine whether a crop succeeds or fails. Publicly attacking a major supplier isn't just a YouTube moment. It can have real-world consequences. So is he biased? Or is he navigating a complicated balance between transparency and practicality? The uncomfortable truth might be that both interpretations can exist at once, and that's what makes the situation so hard to pin down. Here's the part most people don't talk about. Farming today isn't just about soil and weather. It's about data systems, software updates, precision mapping, and machines that function more like rolling computers than tractors. A single combine can cost $500,000. A high horsepower tractor can push even higher. These aren't casual purchases. They're long-term financial commitments that shape an operation for years. At the same time, YouTube isn't what it used to be. What started as a farmer with a camera has evolved into a full-scale media brand. There's filming, editing, travel, coordination, and the pressure to consistently produce content that millions expect. That kind of production doesn't run on ad revenue alone. Brand collaborations are part of the ecosystem. So when people ask whether Millennial Farmer is too close to John Deere, they're really asking something bigger. Can someone operate inside both systems without being controlled? By either. He's running a farm that depends on reliable dealer relationships. He's also running a content platform that occasionally collaborates with manufacturers. Those two worlds naturally overlap. That doesn't automatically mean influence dictates every word, but it does mean the relationship isn't random or distant. This is what modern agriculture looks like: interconnected, corporate, digital, and public all at once. And maybe the real story isn't about one farmer choosing green. It's about how impossible it is to separate business from branding anymore. After all the speculation, the debates, and the comment section arguments, the truth might be less explosive and more complicated. There's no secret evidence showing that John Deere scripts his videos. There's no public proof of hidden contracts controlling what he can or can't say. What we do see is a farmer who has used Deere equipment for years, who has had collaborations labeled as sponsored, and who operates in an industry where manufacturer relationships are normal. That's not scandal, that's structure. But perception matters. When a creator builds their brand on authenticity, even routine partnerships can look suspicious. Viewers want independence. They want someone who feels untouchable by corporate pressure. And the moment a partnership appears, some assume influence follows. At the same time, farming isn't a solo hobby. It's a high-risk, capital-heavy business. Dealer relationships, service networks, and brand consistency aren't luxuries. They're survival tools. Add a media platform on top of that, and the lines blur even more. So is Millennial Farmer too close to John Deere, or is he simply operating inside the same system that most large-scale farmers do, just with the camera pointed at it? The truth isn't dramatic, it's layered, and maybe that's why it keeps people watching. Because in today's world, authenticity doesn't mean isolation, it means navigating partnerships without losing credibility. And that's a balancing act very few people fully understand. At the end of the day, the relationship between Millennial Farmer and John Deere isn't some hidden conspiracy waiting to be exposed. It's a reflection of how modern agriculture and modern media now collide. Zach Johnson is a fifth-generation farmer running expensive, high-tech equipment that his operation has relied on for years. He's also a content creator whose platform occasionally includes labeled collaborations. Those two realities don't cancel each other out, but they do create tension in the eyes of viewers. Some people will always see partnership and assume influence. Others will see practicality and call it smart business. The truth likely sits somewhere in the middle. Farming depends on manufacturer relationships. YouTube depends on revenue streams. When you operate in both worlds, overlap is inevitable. What really matters is transparency, and whether viewers feel like they're seeing the full picture. So, the bigger question isn't whether his tractors are green. It's whether authenticity can survive in an industry where business, branding, and personal storytelling are all intertwined. And that's not just a Millennial Farmer question. It's the future of creator-led industries everywhere.